The SEAL walked in gruff and tired, glanced at the clerk, but when he saw her name tag, he froze, then saluted. His voice cracked as he whispered, "You saved me." She didn't say a word, just reached over the counter and took his hand. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoy stories about unexpected reunions and the moment when heroes recognize their guardian angels, consider subscribing for more content that explores how the bonds forged in service transcend time and circumstance. The fluorescent lights hummed quietly above the reception area at the San Diego Veterans Affairs Medical Center on Tuesday morning, November 14, 2023, where the steady flow of veterans seeking medical appointments, prescription refills, and disability claim assistance created the familiar rhythm of organized activity that characterized one of the nation's busiest VA facilities, serving over 240,000 veterans throughout Southern California. At 9:45 a.m., the reception desk buzzed with routine administrative activity as veterans checked in for appointments, updated insurance information, and navigated the complex bureaucracy that provided essential healthcare and support services for men and women whose military service had earned them lifelong access to VA medical care and disability compensation. Behind the reception counter sat Linda Marie Rodriguez, a 46-year-old woman whose professional appearance, crisp white blouse, navy blue cardigan, and silver-framed reading glasses, reflected the competent efficiency that had made her one of the most valued patient service representatives in the VA Medical Center's administrative staff hierarchy. Her workstation, organized with systematic precision that suggested military training, contained multiple computer monitors displaying patient schedules, insurance verification screens, and appointment booking systems that required simultaneous management of dozens of veteran cases while maintaining accuracy standards that directly affected patient care and facility operations. The nameplate on her desk, Linda Rodriguez, Patient Service Representative, provided no indication of military background or service experience, marking her as one of the civilian employees whose dedication to veteran care and administrative expertise ensured smooth facility operations and positive patient experiences for veterans navigating complex medical and administrative systems. Her approach to patient service reflected genuine concern for veteran welfare combined with professional competence that had earned recognition from supervisors and appreciation from countless veterans who had benefited from her assistance with appointment scheduling, insurance problems, and access to specialized medical services. Around her, the VA Medical Center environment reflected decades of commitment to providing comprehensive health care for American veterans, with specialized clinics, rehabilitation services, mental health programs, and support services designed to address the unique medical needs and service-connected disabilities that affected military personnel throughout their post-service lives. The morning patient flow included veterans from multiple service branches and conflict eras, Vietnam veterans managing Agent Orange-related health issues, Gulf War veterans dealing with unexplained illnesses, Iraq and Afghanistan veterans receiving treatment for traumatic brain injuries and post-traumatic stress disorder, and older veterans whose service-connected disabilities required ongoing medical management and care coordination. Linda's interaction with each veteran reflected her understanding of military culture and genuine appreciation for service and sacrifice, though her civilian status and administrative role provided no obvious indication of personal military experience or connection to combat operations that might have shaped her perspective on veteran care and military community service. "Good morning, Mr. Patterson. I have your neurology appointment confirmed for Thursday at 2:30 p.m., and I've arranged your transportation through the VA shuttle service," Linda said to a 72-year-old Vietnam veteran whose Parkinson's disease symptoms required specialized medical care and assistance with facility navigation. Her attention to veteran needs extended beyond basic administrative tasks to personal advocacy that ensured elderly and disabled veterans received appropriate support services and access to specialized care that addressed service-connected medical conditions and age-related health challenges. Similar interactions throughout the morning demonstrated Linda's comprehensive knowledge of VA services, her ability to navigate complex bureaucratic systems on behalf of veteran patients, and her genuine commitment to ensuring that military personnel receive the medical care and support services they had earned through their service to the nation. Her professional competence and personal dedication had made her a trusted resource for veterans who often face challenges accessing appropriate medical care. Understanding complex benefit systems and coordinating multiple appointments and services through VA administrative procedures that could be confusing and frustrating for patients managing serious medical conditions. At 11:20 a.m., the routine morning activity at the reception desk was interrupted by the arrival of Marcus James Thompson, a 38-year-old man whose physical appearance immediately suggested military background. Muscular build maintained despite obvious physical challenges, tactical clothing preferences, and bearing that reflected years of military discipline and conditioning. His movement toward the reception desk demonstrated the careful gait of someone managing chronic pain and mobility limitations while maintaining the purposeful bearing that characterized military personnel and veterans whose service had included demanding physical requirements and combat operations that tested human endurance and resilience. The visible signs of service-connected disabilities, slight limping that suggested lower extremity injuries, careful movement patterns that indicated back problems, and facial scarring that might reflect combat wounds, marked him as one of the Iraq or Afghanistan veterans whose military service had resulted in permanent physical damage and ongoing medical needs. Marcus approached the reception desk with the focused determination that characterized military personnel completing administrative tasks, though his expression reflected the emotional stress and physical discomfort that often accompanied VA medical appointments for veterans managing complex service-connected disabilities and mental health challenges. "I need to check in for my appointment with Dr. Martinez in orthopedics," Marcus said, his voice carrying the authoritative tone that suggested military leadership experience while reflecting current physical and emotional stress that affected many combat veterans dealing with transition challenges and ongoing medical problems. Linda's response demonstrated the professional courtesy and efficient service that characterized her approach to veteran care, combined with personal attention that recognized the individual challenges that many veterans faced in managing VA medical appointments and bureaucratic requirements, while dealing with service-connected disabilities and mental health issues. "Of course, sir. Let me pull up your information and confirm your appointment details," Linda replied, accessing computer systems with practiced efficiency while maintaining personal attention that demonstrated genuine concern for veteran welfare and successful completion of medical appointments. As Linda reviewed Marcus's patient information and appointment schedule, her systematic approach to administrative tasks reflected professional competence that ensured accurate processing while providing veterans with confidence that their medical care and appointment coordination would be handled appropriately and efficiently. Marcus waited at the reception counter with the patient endurance that characterized military personnel accustomed to administrative procedures and bureaucratic requirements, though his body language suggested physical discomfort and emotional stress that often accompanied VA medical appointments for veterans managing complex disabilities and mental health challenges. The routine interaction between Linda and Marcus proceeded with professional efficiency until Linda reached for her identification badge to verify patient information access permissions, causing the badge to rotate and display her full name, Linda Marie Rodriguez, MSW, LCSW, along with military service ribbons and credentials that indicated social work education and clinical licensure. However, it was not the professional credentials that caught Marcus's attention, but rather the small military service pin attached to Linda's identification badge, a combat medical badge that indicated her service as a combat medic with experience providing emergency medical care under fire during military operations where medical personnel faced the same dangers as combat soldiers while treating wounded personnel. The combat medical badge, awarded only to Army medical personnel who had provided medical aid under enemy fire, represented one of the most respected military awards and indicated service under conditions that tested medical skill, physical courage, and emotional resilience under life-threatening circumstances. Marcus's recognition of the combat medical badge triggered immediate memory responses and emotional reactions as he processed the significance of discovering that the civilian employee helping him with administrative tasks was actually a combat veteran whose military service had included providing emergency medical care under enemy fire. His examination of Linda's identification badge continued as he noticed additional military service indicators that suggested extensive combat deployment experience and medical specialization that would have placed her in positions where wounded soldiers depended on her medical expertise and courage under fire for their survival and recovery. "Ma'am, excuse me, but is that a combat medical badge on your ID?" Marcus asked, his voice reflecting growing recognition and emotional response as he began to process the possibility that the woman helping him with administrative tasks might have connections to his own military service and combat experiences. Linda's response reflected her awareness that her military background had been noticed while maintaining professional boundaries appropriate to her current civilian role and patient service responsibilities that required focus on veteran care rather than personal military experience or recognition. "Yes, I served as a combat medic with the 10th Mountain Division during deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan. But right now, I'm here to help you with your appointment and any other services you might need," Linda replied, attempting to redirect attention to patient service while acknowledging her military background without encouraging extended discussion of combat experience. However, Marcus's reaction indicated that Linda's military service information had triggered specific memories and recognition that suggested direct connection to his own combat experience and potentially life-saving medical care that he had received during military operations in Iraq or Afghanistan. Marcus stared at Linda with increasing intensity as memory patterns coalesced around recognition of physical features, voice characteristics, and personal mannerisms that connected the civilian VA employee with combat medical personnel who had provided life-saving care during critical moments of his military deployment and combat operations. 10th Mountain Division, Afghanistan, 2009 to 2010. Marcus asked, his voice carrying emotional weight that reflected growing certainty about Linda's identity and her role in combat operations that had directly affected his survival and recovery from combat wounds that continued to affect his health and quality of life. Linda's response demonstrated her recognition that Marcus might have direct connection to her military service while maintaining professional boundaries that protected both personal privacy and patient service responsibilities that required focus on current medical needs rather than historical military experiences. "Yes, I deployed with the 10th Mountain during those time frames. Were you also deployed in Afghanistan during that period?" Linda asked, allowing limited discussion of military service while maintaining focus on Marcus's current needs and appointment requirements rather than detailed discussion of combat operations or traumatic experiences. Marcus's emotional response intensified as he processed confirmation of Linda's service details and began accessing specific memories about medical care he had received during combat operations that had saved his life and enabled his survival and recovery from wounds that could have been fatal without immediate and expert medical intervention. Forward Operating Base Shank, September 15, 2009. IED explosion on patrol. "You were the medic who..." Marcus's voice broke as overwhelming emotion prevented completion of his statement while tears began forming as he relived traumatic memories and recognized the person whose medical expertise and courage had saved his life. Linda's recognition of the specific incident and date created immediate emotional response as she processed the significance of encountering one of the wounded soldiers whose life she had saved during combat operations that remained vivid memories involving life-and-death medical decisions under enemy fire. The September 15th incident at Forward Operating Base Shank had involved an improvised explosive device attack on an American patrol that resulted in multiple casualties requiring immediate medical evacuation and emergency trauma care under combat conditions, where enemy fire continued to threaten medical personnel and wounded soldiers. Linda's service as combat medic during that incident had included providing life-saving emergency medical care to severely wounded soldiers while under direct enemy fire, making medical decisions that required expert knowledge and split-second timing while managing multiple casualties whose survival depended on immediate and appropriate medical intervention. Marcus had been one of the most critically wounded soldiers from that incident, with blast injuries that included severe extremity damage, internal bleeding, and traumatic brain injury symptoms that required immediate medical stabilization and evacuation to higher-level medical facilities for surgical intervention and intensive care. "You stayed with me during the entire helicopter evacuation. You kept talking to me telling me I was going to be okay, that I had to stay awake because my family needed me to come home. Marcus continued, his voice reflecting emotional overwhelm as specific memories of Linda's medical care and personal encouragement during critical moments returned with vivid clarity. Linda's memory of Marcus and the September 15th incident included specific details about his wounds, medical treatment protocols, and personal interaction that had been necessary to maintain his consciousness and emotional stability during medical evacuation and treatment that determined his survival and recovery prospects. The helicopter evacuation had been conducted under enemy fire with wounded soldiers whose critical medical conditions required continuous monitoring and medical intervention during transport to higher-level medical facilities where surgical teams could provide definitive care for blast injuries and trauma that exceeded field medical capabilities. I remember you, Marcus. You fought so hard to stay conscious during the evacuation. You kept asking about the other soldiers from your patrol, worried about your teammates even when you were critically wounded. You demonstrated the kind of courage and concern for others that makes military service meaningful, Linda replied, her professional composure beginning to break as she remembered the young soldier whose determination and concern for fellow service members had impressed her during critical moments of medical care. The recognition between Linda and Marcus created intense emotional responses for both individuals as they processed the significance of their reunion in circumstances that demonstrated how military service connections transcended deployment experiences and continued to affect veterans' lives through ongoing relationships and mutual support. Other veterans waiting in the reception area began noticing the emotional interaction between Linda and Marcus, recognizing signs of military connection and reunion that suggested shared combat experience and the kind of bonds that developed between service members who had faced life-threatening situations together. Ma'am, you saved my life that day. The doctors at Landstuhl told me later that I wouldn't have survived the evacuation without the medical care and stabilization you provided under fire. You gave me the chance to come home to my wife and children, Marcus said, his voice cracking with emotion as he acknowledged debt and gratitude that had remained unspoken for 14 years. Linda's response reflected the humility and team focus that characterized combat medical personnel, whose life-saving work was considered duty rather than heroism, despite the personal risk and professional expertise required to provide emergency medical care under enemy fire. Marcus, I was just doing my job. Military medical training prepares us to provide care under any conditions, and you made my job easier because you followed instructions and fought to stay conscious during treatment and evacuation. Your survival was the result of your own strength and the entire medical team's efforts. Her emphasis on team effort and patient cooperation demonstrated military medical culture that recognized successful patient outcomes as collaborative achievements rather than individual heroism, despite the extraordinary circumstances and personal risks involved in combat medical operations. Marcus's emotional response continued as he processed the significance of discovering that the person who had saved his life was now working in civilian capacity to continue serving veterans through administrative support and patient care that helped military personnel navigate complex medical systems and access needed services. I've been looking for you for years. I wanted to thank you properly and let you know how your actions that day affected my entire life. I was able to recover, return to my family, and build a life after the military because you gave me that chance, Marcus explained, his gratitude reflecting the profound impact of Linda's medical care on his survival and subsequent life experiences. The reunion between Linda and Marcus was creating attention from other veterans and VA staff members who recognized the significance of the interaction and the emotional impact of encountering someone whose actions had directly saved a fellow veteran's life during combat operations. After I recovered from my injuries, I tried to find you through military channels and veteran organizations. I knew your name and face, but tracking combat medics after deployment proved impossible through normal administrative systems. I never expected to find you working here at the VA, Marcus continued, explaining his long search for the medic who had saved his life. Linda's work at the VA Medical Center represented continuation of her military service through civilian career dedicated to veteran care and support, using medical social work training and clinical expertise to help veterans navigate healthcare systems and access mental health services that addressed service-related challenges and disabilities. Marcus, working here allows me to continue serving veterans in different ways. My combat medical experience helps me understand what veterans have been through, and my social work training provides tools to help with transition challenges and mental health support that many veterans need after deployment, Linda explained, connecting her military service to civilian career choices. The conversation between Linda and Marcus was drawing attention from other veterans in the reception area, who began understanding that they were witnessing reunion between combat veterans whose shared experience represented the kind of bonds and mutual support that characterized military service and continued to affect veteran communities. Dr. Patricia Martinez, the orthopedic specialist with whom Marcus had scheduled his appointment, emerged from the clinic area to investigate the emotional situation at the reception desk, recognizing that patient care might be affected by whatever was occurring between her patient and the reception staff. Mr. Thompson, is everything all right? I noticed some commotion, and I want to ensure you're prepared for your appointment and that any concerns are addressed appropriately, Dr. Martinez said, approaching with professional concern for patient welfare and appointment scheduling. Marcus's explanation to Dr. Martinez about his reunion with Linda created additional emotional impact, as medical professionals and veterans in the reception area learned about the combat medical care that had saved a fellow veteran's life and enabled his recovery and successful transition to civilian life. Doctor, this is Linda Rodriguez, the combat medic who saved my life in Afghanistan 14 years ago. I've been searching for her ever since to express my gratitude and let her know how her actions affected my entire family's future, Marcus explained, his voice continuing to reflect emotional overwhelm and profound gratitude. Dr. Martinez's response demonstrated professional understanding of combat medical care and recognition of the significance of Linda's service and her continued dedication to veteran care through her civilian career at the VA Medical Center. Ms. Rodriguez, your combat medical service and current work with veterans represents the kind of dedication and continued service that makes our veteran healthcare system successful. Mr. Thompson is fortunate to have received your care during his deployment and to benefit from your ongoing commitment to veteran welfare. The recognition from Dr. Martinez created additional validation for Linda's service and career choices, while acknowledging the impact of combat medical care on veteran survival and recovery that enabled successful transition to civilian life and ongoing contribution to family and community welfare. Other veterans in the reception area began approaching Linda and Marcus to express appreciation for military service and to share their own stories about combat medical care and life-saving treatment they had received from military medical personnel during deployments and combat operations. Ma'am, thank you for your service and for continuing to serve veterans here at the VA. Combat medics saved my life in Iraq, and knowing that medical personnel like you continue supporting veterans means everything to those of us who understand what military medical care involves, said James Wilson, a 45-year-old Iraq veteran whose own combat wounds had required emergency medical treatment. Similar expressions of appreciation from other veterans created impromptu recognition ceremony in the VA reception area as military personnel and veterans acknowledged Linda's combat medical service and her continued dedication to veteran care through civilian career choices. Linda's response to the recognition and appreciation reflected her understanding of military community values, while maintaining focus on current responsibilities and veteran service that characterized her approach to both military and civilian careers. Thank you all for your kind words. Military service taught me that we take care of each other, whether that's providing medical care under fire or helping with VA appointments and services. Veterans deserve the best care and support we can provide, and I'm honored to continue serving in whatever capacity I can. Her emphasis on continued service and veteran care demonstrated values and commitment that transcended military service and continued to motivate career choices and community involvement that benefited veteran welfare and support systems. Marcus's orthopedic appointment was postponed to allow time for appropriate recognition of his reunion with Linda and to ensure that emotional responses and medical needs were addressed appropriately without rushing through significant personal interactions that affected both individuals' well-being. Dr. Martinez coordinated with VA mental health services to provide appropriate support for both Linda and Marcus as they processed emotional responses to their reunion and the memories of combat experience that had been triggered by their recognition and conversation about life-saving medical care. The VA Medical Center's Patient Services Director, Patricia Chun, approached the reception area to understand the situation and ensure that both employee and patient welfare were being addressed appropriately while maintaining normal facility operations and patient care schedules. Ms. Rodriguez, Mr. Thompson, I understand you've had a significant reunion related to your military service. Please let us know how we can support both of you as you process this experience and ensure that Mr. Thompson's medical needs are addressed appropriately, Director Chin said, demonstrating administrative support for veteran welfare and employee well-being. The VA facility's response to Linda and Marcus's reunion reflected institutional understanding of combat trauma and veteran mental health needs, while providing appropriate support for emotional responses that could affect both employee performance and patient care outcomes. Linda's supervisor, Margaret Stevens, provided coverage for reception desk duties to allow Linda time to process emotional responses and participate in appropriate recognition of her combat medical service and reunion with a soldier whose life she had saved during deployment operations. Linda, take whatever time you need to process this experience. Your service as combat medic and your dedication to veteran care here at the VA represents the best of military values and continued service. We'll ensure reception operations continue while you address personal needs, Supervisor Stevens said, demonstrating employee support and recognition. The administrative support provided to Linda reflected VA institutional values that recognized employee military service and understood the emotional impact of combat veteran reunions and recognition that could affect personal well-being and professional performance. Marcus's family was contacted to inform them about his reunion with the combat medic who had saved his life, creating additional emotional responses and gratitude from family members whose lives had been directly affected by Linda's medical care and military service. His wife, Jennifer Thompson, arrived at the VA Medical Center within an hour to meet Linda and express family gratitude for medical care that had enabled Marcus's survival and recovery, allowing him to return home and participate in family life and community activities. Ms. Rodriguez, our entire family owes you a debt of gratitude that we can never repay. Marcus's survival and recovery allowed our children to grow up with their father and gave us the opportunity to build a life together after his military service, Jennifer said, her emotional gratitude reflecting family understanding of Linda's impact on their lives. The family recognition created additional emotional impact for Linda as she understood the long-term consequences of combat medical care and the way life-saving actions during deployment continued to affect veteran families and communities for years after military service ended. Linda's own family was contacted about the reunion and recognition, providing them with understanding of her combat medical service that she had rarely discussed in detail due to operational security requirements and personal preferences for privacy about traumatic combat experiences. Her husband and children learned details about Linda's military service and life-saving medical care that helped them understand her dedication to veteran service and the emotional significance of her work at the VA Medical Center supporting veterans with medical needs and disability challenges. 2 weeks after the reunion, the VA Medical Center organized formal recognition ceremony honoring Linda's combat medical service and her continued dedication to veteran care through civilian career, creating community awareness about veteran employee contributions and military service recognition. The ceremony included participation from local veteran organizations, military units, and community leaders who wanted to acknowledge Linda's service and demonstrate community support for veterans who continued serving through civilian careers and volunteer activities. Marcus participated in the recognition ceremony, sharing his story about Linda's life-saving medical care and expressing gratitude that represented all veterans who had benefited from combat medical personnel whose courage and expertise had enabled survival and recovery under life-threatening conditions. His presentation to ceremony attendees emphasized the lasting impact of combat medical care and the importance of recognizing military medical personnel whose service often went unacknowledged despite the critical role they played in saving lives and enabling veteran recovery and successful transition. Local media coverage of Linda's recognition ceremony created broader community awareness about veteran contributions to civilian workforce and the ways that military service experience continued to benefit communities through various forms of continued service and professional dedication. The story of Linda and Marcus's reunion was featured in veteran publications and military magazines as example of combat bonds and continued service that demonstrated military values and mutual support that transcended deployment experiences and continued to affect veteran communities. 6 months after their reunion, Linda and Marcus established Veteran Support Program at the VA Medical Center that connected veterans with similar military experiences and provided peer support for transition challenges and service-connected disability management. Their program utilized their shared understanding of combat experience and recovery to help other veterans navigate VA services and access mental health support that addressed deployment trauma and adjustment challenges that affected many military personnel transitioning to civilian life. Linda's combination of combat medical experience and clinical social work training provided unique qualifications for veteran mental health support and program development that addressed specific needs of combat veterans managing service-connected disabilities and transition challenges. Marcus's experience as veteran patient and his successful recovery from combat wounds provided peer perspective that helped other veterans understand disability management and VA service navigation while maintaining hope for recovery and successful civilian life adaptation. Today, Linda continues her work at the VA Medical Center while serving as program coordinator for veteran peer support services that utilize her military experience and clinical training to benefit veteran mental health and disability management throughout the Southern California veteran community. Marcus serves as volunteer peer counselor and veteran advocate, using his recovery experience and ongoing relationship with Linda to demonstrate successful veteran transition and the importance of continued connection to military community and mutual support systems. Their program has expanded to include family support services that address the ways combat deployment and service-connected disabilities affect veteran families and require comprehensive support systems that address both veteran and family member needs for successful transition and community integration. The VA Medical Center has adopted their program model for implementation at other facilities throughout the VA healthcare system, recognizing the effectiveness of combining combat experience with clinical expertise and peer support for addressing veteran mental health and transition challenges. Linda's influence extends through training programs where she educates VA staff about combat experience and veteran culture while sharing clinical approaches that address service-related trauma and disability challenges that affect veteran healthcare outcomes and quality of life. Marcus's advocacy work includes speaking at military installations and veteran organizations about recovery from combat wounds and successful civilian transition, using his relationship with Linda to demonstrate the lasting bonds and mutual support that characterize military service. The reception desk where Linda and Marcus reunited has become symbolic of veteran recognition and continued service, representing the ways that military experience continues to benefit communities through civilian careers and volunteer activities that support veteran welfare and community integration. Their story demonstrates that military service creates lasting relationships and obligations for continued service that transcend deployment experiences, enabling veterans to support each other through various forms of mutual aid and community involvement that maintain military values while building civilian lives and relationships. The tears that Marcus shed when recognizing Linda reflected emotional responses that characterize veteran reunions and recognition of life-saving actions that enabled survival and successful transition to civilian life, family relationships, and community involvement that justify military service and sacrifice. The hand that Linda extended across the reception counter represented continued care and support that characterized her approach to both combat medical service and civilian career dedication to veteran welfare, demonstrating values and commitment that transcended professional requirements and reflected personal dedication to service member welfare.